Hey guys, so recently I went for a D&D session, and ever since I did that, people have been asking me what that is. So I thought I'd make a quick little video that will explain what it is. It will be quick. Keep in mind you could just Google this, so I'm going to explain it in my own words. D&D stands for Dungeons and Dragons. Basically, it's a game of make-believe and rolling dice. That is it in a nutshell. I know that sounds a little vague, make-believe and dice, but hear me out. How the game works is you have one person who is called the GM or the DM, which stands for Game Master or Dungeon Master. And he basically has created a story situation that has a beginning, middle, and an end, and maybe it leads into a bigger story. Let me explain this simply. Imagine a world of your choosing in pop culture. Let's say Harry Potter, the world of Harry Potter, or Harry Potter's universe, or the Marvel universe, or Lord of the Rings. Now imagine if you could put yourself in that world. What would you do? Who would you be? What kind of character would you be? With the Harry Potter example, would you be a teacher? Would you be a student? Would you be like staff who works at Hogwarts? Would you work for a separate school? What kind of character would you be? Would you be someone who is good, a studious student, who is trying their very best to follow the teacher's notes or listen to lectures properly? Or would you be an evil, chaotic student who is going to go and cause mischief in the school? Or are you a student who gets bullied in Hogwarts? You know? Basically, when you imagine yourself in that world and you create a sort of character as to what you'd be in that world, you're role-playing. You're creating a character who you can imagine yourself as in that world. Dungeons & Dragons is basically that. It's a world that was created with elves and humans and dwarves and goblins and all sorts of other races. And we basically take the races, the types of people you can be, and we create our own characters. And the GM or the DM is in charge of telling the story that we will play through. So you might be wondering where dice come in. So dice are sort of like a random element that's used to make the games more fun, really. The dices that we use in D&D are of all shapes. They're not just the six-sided dice. We do use those, but they're not just the six-sided dice. We use 20-sided dices and 8-sided dices and things like that. So the way the dice rolling works is, let's say your character is faced with a situation or an obstacle or is in an environment. The GM will tell you to roll that dice in order to see how your character will react to that environment, which could mean either your character will succeed or fail at doing something in this world. As an example, with the Harry Potter sort of situation, let's say the GM says, you and your fellow students approach a tree. The tree is old and looks shriveled and kind of has this feeling of foreboding. What do you do? As the player, you might say your character wants to investigate it, like see if there's anything special about this tree. So let's say I'm playing a character like Ron called Bron, okay? So I, as the person playing Bron, will say, I want to investigate that tree. And the GM will tell you to roll something. He might ask you to roll a d20, which is a 20-sided dice. He might ask you to roll a d8, which is an 8-sided dice. He might ask you to roll a d6, which is the usual, typical dice that you see in most games. So you'll roll that, and depending on that number, you'll either succeed and fail. The GM knows whether you will succeed or fail, because he has already pre-planned all the conditions for succeeding and failing. So the GM will, maybe in his notes, he or she will have a thing written that if someone rolls a 12 on investigate or seeing, they will be able to detect something special about this tree. So let's take that scenario with Brom, right? Let's say he rolls a 16 and the GM wanted a success to be something over 12. The GM might say something like, Brom notices that there is something shiny stuck in the tree. And upon closer inspection, that shiny thing in the tree seems to have a little handle, about 2 inches long and with a leather hilt of some sort. Now, based off of that check, the characters might decide to either take it out, interact with it, but the GM sort of leads the story, which tells a bigger story of maybe what's going on. Maybe it's a sword, maybe it's a trap, who knows? That's all the GM's storytelling stuff. So this is a really fun game, and it's worth checking out if you can especially find a good group of people. It is a time commitment, but it's definitely worth it. I definitely had a lot of fun. As someone with low vision, I highly encourage you, if you have low vision, to try this game out, because it's mainly just auditory storytelling. I will have a video later on explaining what I use to make up for the lack of vision, especially like with dice and the apps I use and all that stuff, how to keep track of characters, blah blah blah. I hope this helped. If you're looking for an example of where D&D has been played in popular culture, if you've watched Stranger Things, the first episode, that's the game that the kids are playing. Note that in the game that they are playing, they're using a board, which isn't required for D&D. Like, we are not using a board or those figures, but you could use them if you want. It's very flexible most of the time, depending on the GM. Anyways, I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you feel inclined. And yeah, have fun.